In his 1932 work, Art and Artist, the Austrian psychoanalyst Otto Rank examines one of the most mysterious questions ever asked. Why do we make art? He explores this question in a variety of ways, but one of the most profound is from the perspective of the psychological needs of the artist himself. Rank argues that artists are individuals with abnormally strong wills. One of the foundational concepts of psychoanalysis is the dichotomy between humanity's collective will and the will of the individual personality. The will can be thought of as humanity's unique desire to immortalize itself in order to deal with the anxiety caused by the knowledge of death. For Rank, there are two distinct methods of achieving this immortality: collective and individual. Collective immortality is found through participation and identification in a larger community, whether that be religious, political, cultural, or familial. Individual immortality, on the other hand, is achieved through a person striving to eternalize their own personality through some sort of creative work, whether artistic, scientific, or philosophical in nature. Rank describes two different types of people, the partialist and the totalist. The partialist seeks immortality through collective means, and thus sacrifices aspects of their own personality in order to better adapt to the demands of the community they wish to integrate with. In contrast, the totalist seeks individual immortality and attempts to maintain their personality completely during every moment of their experience. This is, however, virtually impossible to accomplish, and in order to avoid complete exhaustion and psychic pain, the totalist closes themselves off from many experiences. But this strategy turns them neurotic, unable to engage in life at all. So the totalist instead creates an entirely separate life and lives almost completely in their creative work. Through creating, the artist is able to live and engage in meaningful activity without having to sacrifice aspects of themselves. In his or her pursuit of a separate creative life, the artist is dependent on a particular current style, or as Rank calls it, an art ideology. An art ideology is simply any style of art that is held together by certain ideals, values, practices, and aesthetics. Rank argues that in order to cultivate the skills necessary for a creative life, the artist starts working in one of the dominant styles of their time. For a while, the artist is happy with this arrangement. They are free from the collective immortality ideology of the wider society they live in, and can use the techniques and ideas of a certain art ideology for their own purposes. However, an unforeseen problem emerges. Because the artist tries to maintain their personality throughout all of their experiences, they end up absorbing the entire world as part of themselves. As a result, when they experience creative activity, they are just as susceptible to the same danger of losing themselves than as if it were any other experience. The world they create threatens to swallow them up, just like the external world did, and their quest for individual immortality becomes compromised. In order to escape from this, the artist throws their creations away from themselves and gives them to the public. By fixing their work to a definite shape, they make an object out of their subjective process and choose to part ways with this object by offering it to the community. But this creates further problems, as the community views their work through the lens of the art ideology the artist is operating within. The artist's creation becomes absorbed by the collective will and becomes a mere museum piece, its sole purpose to serve as an example of the art ideology it belongs to. Since the work contains the totality of the artist's being, they find themselves in the original distressful situation, that of their individual will being dominated by the collective. What options are left for the artist at this point? It seems to me there are only two imperfect solutions. Both involve resignation of some sort, either to surrender or eternal struggle. On one hand, the artist can accept that their work, and thus their entire personality, will have to be subjugated to a particular ideology. They choose to forsake their quest for individual immortality, but find that now the collective forms are available. They make their art so that it can be integrated by the larger community, and thus find fulfillment in serving a purpose to the collective. They simply must become comfortable with sacrificing their work and their life to the art ideology they are working within. The other option for the artist is endless rebellion. They can accept that long-lasting creative satisfaction will never be possible. The artist of this sort is forever at war with their art because they are forever at war with themselves, or at least the part of themselves that identifies with their art ideology. As they seek to assert their will again and again, their art comes to represent the collective art ideology that they are driven to overcome. The artist's fight against art arises from the fight against the individual and collective wills of humanity. Thus, as long as humanity persists, the struggle of the artist persists. And if we look back to the original question, we can see the paradox it contains. We make art because the art we make forces us to.